What is up, Niko Nation? Episode 2 of Division Draftables, our NFL draft series that highlights the outlook of your favorite team and all 32 NFL teams as we transition out of the draft cycle into training camp and soon preseason football. I'm your host, Niko Chambers, Niko the Draft Guy. P Dunn, what's up, man?
What's up, man? How are we doing?
Doing awesome. I'm super excited to get into this with you. We got NFC North today, and your Bears are in this. So.
Uh-huh.
It's gonna be very exciting for you. I know we got a lot of fans that are super excited for that. So we're just gonna get right into this. Um, and the first team up is the Detroit Lions. Pete, Dunn, what do you think about their draft?
Well, I'm a little bit higher on it than you are. And I think both of ours draft grades are diminished a lot because of the first overall pick. A lot of weight is put into that. And I think I'm just a little bit higher on that pick than you are.
Yep.
I think we're very, very similar on how we see the player. But I think I like the way he fits and a little bit more of their use of that pick than you do. We both love Tate Ratledge. I think we both love that pick. I like the way Isaac Tesla might move in a couple years, but other than that, man, it was a very uneventful draft. Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about more individuals in a second, but like it's looking at the draft from a overview, it's just I don't know, man. It's not great.
It's tough. Obviously the Lions are a lot farther along at developing their players than a lot of franchises. So you look at these picks and you try to rank it and it's like, wait, they're really good at developing certain players like their D line. For example. But that's not really our job. Our job is to kind of tell you how we feel about the picks and how we think their careers are going to end up. And that's why I gave this one a C. I'm just not very high on Tyleik Williams at Ohio State. I feel like, you know, when you go down the list, and obviously Mason Graham was off the board, and so was Kenneth Grant, and so was Walter Nolan, and then even Harmon to the Steelers. Like, at this point, obviously Tyleik was the fifth defensive tackle taken, but it's like, okay, do you go for a more needy position? I thought they could have, went wide receiver or corner.
I
We'll
mean,
say,
Ezra was on the
yeah,
board. That I
like
was so sure that they were going to take him, and that would have fit in so well across from Hutchinson. I like. There's so many better picks that they could have made just to back off of what you're saying. Like, yes,
yeah,
is it going to work? Yes, it's going to work. But like, there's like you could have had a really, really great player at
it
that
was
pick,
it was the
and they
biggest reach
couldn't.
in the draft for me.
Yeah.
Um, I think in the first round, no doubt about it. And yeah, if you wanted to go defensive line, you have those guys. Even Mike Green was falling and stuff like that, and Blue Johnson was obviously still there. So I just didn't understand that. I like the Tate Ratledge pick. I think he'll be good. Tesla's one of those weird ones where like they can develop him and he can be super good, or if they just kind of neglect him, he's going to be awful.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it is. I like the Miles Frazier. I like the Ahmed pick also. But yeah, it's not really doing anything much for me. It's a below average draft. It's one of the worst drafts, if I'll be straight up with you, that I saw this year. Kind of going into the depth chart, not much moving around. Pete, what do you see?
I see a really good team. It's a really great roster. You've got everything you could want. Could they have gotten better with Donovan Ezraku on that defensive line? Yes, they could have. But the offense has firepower. The offensive line is fantastic. The defensive line's good. You've got great pieces in that secondary, with a great linebacking core. Like it's a great team. While we have a lot of question marks, OCDC, you can't question the roster. The depth chart is fantastic. So
100%. And we'll get into that a little bit later here, about kind of how they bounce back from losing their two guys, Aaron Glenn, and of course, your boy Ben Johnson, over in Chicago. Yeah, I mean, I'll just say it like this was a very injury prone team last year. The injury stacked up. I think that honestly, kind of limited them to where they really could have been. They were really good last year. specifically on that defensive line, you just see how deep it is. I mean, this is going five guys deep, and I remember last year was almost six, and you're signing Jamal Adams and just dudes like just off of nowhere just to play. Hopefully Aiden Hutchinson, and I think he 100% will be. He'll be back to his full self, and he'll be in that Defensive Player of the Year talks, and he can be that guy for you. But really, I feel like this season for this Lions team, it counts on Jared Goff. Can he sustain? Because he's getting older. Um, like how longer can he sustain doing this? And how long can they get away with this just kind of extravagant offense that has been firepower with Montgomery and Gibbs and Amon-Ra
Yep.
before kind of the league figures it out? That's really the big question mark here. I like the DJ Reed signing. But yeah, pretty quiet offseason. But when you're really good, a good football team that went 15-2 last year, you don't really need to make that many additions. So
Yep.
I do not mind that at all. Pete Dunn, we get your big five right here. Talk to me about it.
Favorite pick. Like you said, there's definitely a chance a couple years down the road we're looking back and we were like, why did I make that my favorite pick? And he is not even on the roster anymore.
Yeah.
But there's also a chance that the biggest thing that this team has lacked is an X receiver. And a lot of their receiver production goes through Laporta and it goes through Amon-Ra, who both work out of the slot. And so they got a guy that they believed in, and they haven't done that before. They haven't spent a draft pick on an X receiver, and they did. And it was a third round pick. So this is a guy they obviously like and they're intrigued on getting. Even JMO, when they spent that, like he's not an X, like he's a fidget guy, like he's not gonna play that role, and they found one that they liked, so I'm gonna trust them on that side of things. He's also a freak athlete. He's a great athlete. He's not gonna play this year. I think they have Tim Patrick at that X receiver right now, and which is going to be great. Get a veteran in there to teach him the ways and let him learn underneath of him. Draft Diamond, Tate Ratledge is going to be a really good football player for a really long time with this team. It's going to be really great to see him maybe this year, probably next year, step into some part on that interior and just be a dog for them. Best value, I don't know.
There
They
was none.
reached on everyone.
Reached
Everyone
on everyone.
drafted, they reached on. So I didn't have a best value. Their sleeper, I think that edge group needs another guy. Pascal's the third down guy, and he's their biggest name outside of Hutch. Ahmad is not a third down guy. He's a strong-handed, big opposite, big run gapping guy to be on the other side of Hutchinson. And I think he could do that early in his career. Year one impact, Tyleek. That's what they drafted him for. He's going to go. He's going to clog holes, and he's going to be really good for that interior. Even though they took him about 30 picks earlier than I think they should have.
I 100% agree. I feel like this is a Dan Campbell pick written all over it. Not as high on him as you are in a sense. But we'll kind of go here. So my picks, I like the Ahmed pick for he kind of fits the mold of what a Dan Campbell player looks like. You saw him getting hyped at the combine and some
Mm,
videos there. I think he will be a good rotational player for this team for a long time. I think obviously Tate Ratledge as the draft diamond. I think that's kind of a no-brainer pick. Um, I just really like what he brings to this team. I think he could be a plug and play almost immediately if they even need him. Best value. I like the Miles Frazier pick. I really do kind of like I was really high on him. But I feel like where they got him, he was just outside of my 150 when I was ranking the guys. But to get him in the fifth round, um, that's extraordinary. And I like his versatility if you're going to play him inside or outside. I think Dominic Lovett is a very big sleeper on this team. I feel like he can provide something that if Tesla doesn't step up to the plate, I think Lovett can.
right.
Because they really needed this. Like Jameson Williams is that deep ball threat guy.
Yeah.
Um, but like, who is that other receiver? Like, who's the X?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I think he'd be the X, but I think he could definitely make some reasonable strides that'll get him there. And then you draft him that early for a reason. Sometimes the reach, you got to just go get the guy, and they really liked him. So I'm going to trust them. And I'm going to just say, good job for them getting their guy and going with their gut. The main storyline around this Lions team is really losing both coordinators.
Of course.
Um, how is this team going to look? How different is it going to look without both those coordinators?
It's interesting because as long as it's a Dan Campbell team, they will always have the Dan Campbell roots. They've been really intentional about the character of the people that they've drafted over the last few years. So that locker room will be intact. They have the same leaders, they have the same head coach, and so you're going to see the same brand of football played. You can have a bunch of really motivated people, and if you don't have the right coaching staff telling them what to do, it's going to be really hard to get guys like that to succeed. So we'll see how they backfill those positions. It only time will tell, but I mean, it's really hard to foresee them living up to the expectations that they had last year, like because you had two of the best you had the best coordinator duo in the league last year, and it's gone now. It's going to be really hard for them to live up to that. But do I think that they can still be very good and very productive? Absolutely, I think they do.
Yeah, I think they definitely take a step down from their 15-2 season last year. We'll kind of get into that as we go on and look at the win totals for this division. But you can't really complain. If you're a Lions fan, I wouldn't be too concerned. It's not like this is just a terrible draft. I don't think it's a good draft. I think it is a bottom five draft. However, I trust the coaching staff and just the organization to do what they must with these picks. So I wouldn't be as concerned if I was a Lions fan. However, are you concerned as a Packers fan?
Oh boy. Yeah, this is not
It's
good. It's not good. It's really not good, man.
I think we both had it. This is bottom three for both of us.
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan of this Green Bay Packers draft. The Matthew Golden pick, we go back and forth on it all the time. Um, and you're a lot higher than I am. But I just don't understand bringing in another receiver to this just very crowded receiver room. And I think that's the big storyline of this team. And then I think just they didn't help themselves with the offensive line pick round two. Like you said in previous videos, it's a swing. That's a swing tackle when you needed a tackle.
Yeah.
And then taking another receiver third round, it just boggles my mind even more. And I think Savion Williams will be a good player, but the rest of it, I don't know. What do you got for me? Well, give some hope for Packer fans, if there is any.
My if I asked you to give hope, it would look a lot different than when I am supposed to give hope because we see the golden thing so differently. I
Yeah.
really do like that pick. We've had conversations about it before. I think it was the right pick. I think he's going to be great in that offense. I think he's going to walk in. He's going to be your number one receiver. Just because it's a crowded room doesn't mean you don't still need an alpha. And I think he will be that alpha. I had him as my second receiver on the board. And so. And Travis Hunter was my one. So if you count him as a corner, then he was my best receiver in this draft. So I was just naturally higher on him than you are. Other than that, it's really bad, man. It's really bad. It's really bad. Belton is fine. I had a third round grade on him. You had a fourth round grade on him, and they took him outside the top 50. I don't know. Savion Williams, there's probably six or seven receivers I would have taken over him at that point, maybe
Who were
more.
available?
Who were there on the board, like available to be drafted, and you don't need another receiver. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just bad. And then
Yeah.
it's just bad. I don't have a lot of optimism. And I know I'm a Bears fan. This is completely unbiased. It's just
Yeah.
really, really bad. It's really bad. Really
Coming
bad.
from a Seahawks fan, really no hate for the Packers that much. But it's just not good. I I don't know how much better you got. Let's really look to see. And there's not much changes in the starting group on offense and defense. Nate Haas was like the one guy that they brought in
Yeah.
alongside Aaron Banks on offense. But other than that, they literally did nothing. I mean, I see Isaiah Simmons here. That would like be like the top three, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and you just have you can see at the top of the screen here just a bunch of stuff. How do the Packers sort out? And we'll get into it right now. This wide receiver room, how does it stack out? You got guys who are in contract years. You got multiple guys in contract years. So maybe that justifies the drafting of two receivers.
Yeah.
But how does it stack up in a year where you have all of them on the roster?
So here's, and this is goes into the conversation we had before. When I look at this wide receiver room, I see Romeo Dobbs, who has concussion problems and off the field issues. I see Christian Watson, who has not made it through a full season after his 3 years in the league and has been very unproductive. Outside of a couple flashes, he's not been worth the draft pick that he was used on. And Jaden Reed, who's good. Like Jaden Reed's good, but he's a very one-dimensional player. And he's not ready to, he's nowhere near an alpha wide receiver. And so when you've got guys, Dobbs and Christian Watsons, who are not probably, at least one of them is not going to be on the roster coming up. I understand that there's opportunities for these guys to make get themselves bigger contracts. I don't see that happening. I also don't. If you wanted a wide receiver, Savion Williams is like a running back receiver. Kind of think of a Debo Samuel type of player, and he's not a receiver. Like he's not what these other guys are. So
It's
you got
just
a gadget guy. You didn't get a receiver when you needed a receiver. So I don't know, man. It's just it's a crowded room. Is there a world where it works out really well? Of course there is. Is there a world where Matthew Golden and Jaden Reed are your only receivers on the roster next year? Yeah, there is. Like it's it's really interesting how this is going to work out. But I do have a lot of faith that Golden's going to work out for this team. So that is definitely the bright spot right now.
yeah, and kind of look you're looking at this defense, not many changes, but you also have to note that I mean, in a year, two, three, all of these guys are going to be under contract. Literally all of them. And then of course the question around Jair Alexander and the only corner you kind of take is in the seventh.
Yeah.
It's very head scratching. But at the same time, like I don't know if it's panic button time yet for this Packers team. They were 11-6 last year. They are in a loaded division, so if you want to panic, it's because you're in this division. It's less about kind of the roster you're throwing out there, because you just trust that home field advantage come December is going to be unstoppable. You trust Jordan Love to make more strides towards the really top 10 quarterback he is trending towards, if he's not already that. We'll go into your picks, Peyton. What values this C- grade for you?
Well, I think that the Matthew Golden pick is very obviously my favorite. He's the only player that I actually have faith in. That's why he's in three of these five spots.
Yeah.
Micah Robinson as the draft diamond only because it's a very open corner room. Jair Alexander, we talked about this before, has been asking for a trade, and they've been wanting to trade him for a long time, it seems. Will it ever happen? I don't know. We don't know. But even with Nate Hodge have a good year last year with Vegas, he's gonna play there. There's opportunities in that room though. And so that's a guy that they had faith in because they didn't draft one earlier. So I don't know. Sleeper, Anthony Belton, there's a lot of guys coming up for contracts with that offensive line, like we talked about. So maybe down the road, he's a guy that's going to get some playing time, maybe even this year, and someone that will have an impact on this team in the future. So,
I feel like the best way to describe this team is kind of, and it's weird to say, but I feel like their window's closing. And haven't really had one in the first place. They kind of did a really good job rebuilding after the Rodgers thing. And they kind of had like the short window where they could kind of go on and kind of compete. They were kind of, before the Lions came up, they were going to be the first team in the division almost every year. But, with the ascendance of the Lions, with the shock of the Vikings and what they did last year, and of course, what the Bears are building, I just don't know how much longer this Packers team is going to sustain, you know, being a great team in this division. I think they can be a good team, but I think good is their ceiling. And
yeah.
I feel like if you are a Packers fan, that would be a one big thing of concern as you go into this season. I'll talk a little bit about my guys really briefly. Baron Sorrell, I really like this pick. I think that with the amount of movement that will happen on that defensive line in the next few years, based on just contracts, you can't pay everybody. You're gonna give him opportunities, and he's going to step up to the plate for those opportunities. I think draft diamond. I think Golden. I'm not high on Golden, but if I'm putting him as my draft diamond, that's how you know it was not the best draft because you're way higher than me, and I think he's gonna have the best career out of everybody. I'm not really that high on him, but kind of working with what I got here. Best value, like you said with that Lions team, I just didn't see any value. I feel like they kind of reached on a lot, kind of picked like just random picks in a sense. They didn't pick needs, and we talked about this. I feel like they filled their needs, but you agreed that they didn't. Like they picked numbers, the needs in terms of numbers, but not the actual needs that'll help this football team.
Yeah,
So that's there. I think Savion Williams will turn into a player. I feel like honestly, I think Watson and Dobbs are not going to come back next year. So we'll come back to this video and we'll look at the two draft picks in the first three rounds as okay, it makes sense. But I think he'll be um, a really good sleeper for them. And then year one impact Golden. I mean, if you're drafting him in the first round after what you have, then he better be good. But yeah, I feel like this Packers team kind of trending on the outward, if you will.
I agree.
Um, and a team that's kind of been trending on the upward, the Minnesota Vikings. They're kind of early to this quote unquote rebuild that they've
Mhm.
been doing. Only had 5 picks this year. Once again, not high on this draft either. Talk to me about this draft, Pete.
Well, in a weird way, it's very similar to the Lions draft. But I was a lot higher on Donovan Jackson. I think he's going to be fantastic. I think I had him ahead of Tyler Booker on my board. I think he's going to be very, very good. He's going to be a great pro. He's going to play for a long time. So that carries all of the grade, every bit of positivity that is in this class is from the Donovan Jackson
Yeah,
pick because everything else is bad. Ty Felton was a big reach.
massive reach.
And then the other three guys, I watched Kobe King and I didn't rank him. He was not good, in
Yeah,
my opinion. I did not see a lot of upside in him. And then I didn't watch the other two guys. I like the Bartholomew name. I have trust that with a name like that, he's going to be our tight end. But other than that, man, it's not good. This very easily could have been a D plus if I was not as high on Donovan Jackson as I am. I think they got a player that's going to be really good for a long time on a really important position.
and I 100% agree with that. Part of my ranking in the C minus is I totally think Donovan Jackson, great pick. He could play multiple positions at Ohio State. I just didn't exactly understand it. And I felt like they had more needs, obviously, that they needed to get. But like you got the pair um, from Indianapolis in that kind of that front five, getting Ryan Kelly and Will Fry as your center, your right guard. And then you kind of throw Donovan Jackson in there. I kind of wasn't really understanding that. I feel like they could have went in a different direction. I feel like safety was a screaming need.
Yeah.
Harrison Smith is aging.
Yeah.
Um, and they did not really bat an eye to that at all. I
No, and
felt because
they had Malachi Starks on the
he
board.
was on the board,
And not
and
only did
so
they
is so
not
is Imam Worry, and
they did not only did they not draft them, they didn't draft a safety at all. There was no safety
nothing.
drafted, and there was no corner drafted, which was another need that they needed bad.
Yeah, and they
They
lost
did
they
not
lost
invest
a
anything in
safety.
the secondary.
They lost a safety in Bynum. Like I don't know. It's just a very lackluster draft. Besides the Donovan Jackson pick, I think Donovan Jackson is going to be exceptional. Love that man. His film is great. But just the rest is just you get kind of you can see here, especially. I mean, you got two defensive ends who are free agents coming in, and you don't really address that with what, a fifth round pick? Yeah, like a fifth round pick, a non-ranked guy, a non-notable guy. When you were picking first, Izaraku was on the board. Mike Green was on the board. We can go on to the Will Johnsons. All of this, all those guys could have been players in this, and they kind of just didn't bat an eye. So
And
I don't know really how to
another
feel.
thing that's really interesting is there was I know for a fact that the Eagles and the Giants both tried to trade up with the Vikings, and they didn't accept either of those trades in a draft where they A have holes and B only have 5 picks. So I don't know, like it's just
They must have loved him.
they he better, and I think you will, but
Yeah,
like he better work out because you gave up. you sacrificed a lot in order
For
to
me,
keep.
this roster is like a year away
Yeah, I
because
agree.
you got to see the ascendance of McCarthy and everything.
Yep.
They're literally a year away. They are nasty. Like one more free agency if they can figure out contracts and stuff. Like nobody's crazy pricey yet. You're trying to push the Jefferson thing and stuff like that. Like this would kind of be your win now mode,
Yep.
um, where you could really make those leaps and strides. They didn't really do it in the draft, which is kind of unfortunate if you are a Vikings fan. We'll kind of go into it here. Pete, don't talk to me.
Well, we've talked enough about Donovan Jackson. He's going to be a really good player. That's why he's my favorite pick, and he's going to slot in at left guard for them, and he's going to be really good. So, not a lot to talk about there. Draft Diamond, like we talked about, it's an empty defensive end room. And Ty Ingram Dawkins is a guy that did not get a lot of playing time at Georgia because of how good that room was.
Yeah,
So maybe he has more in the tank than he was able to show. I'm not sure. Best value, Kobe King, simply because I know a lot of people had him really high and he went as a sixth-round pick. So good on them for getting a guy that I didn't think was very good, but
yeah,
everybody else did. So, um, and then sleeper, Ty Felton, Jordan Addison. I have no idea whether he's going to get a second contract, but Ty Felton plays like Jordan Addison does. So there is a role for him in the future if they believe that Felton is going to be good, which they use their second pick on him.
yep,
Um, and so there's a role for him if Jordan Addison does not stay with the team in the next few years. So,
yeah. And like we said, kind of with kind of their window, it's weird because it's like the Packers. I feel like the Packers window's closed. I feel like this one is closing. It's like that weird thing where like it's starting to open up, but then soon you're gonna have to pay everybody.
yeah.
So really, we were confused about that pick, but maybe that kind of gives the light for Ty Felton, because he does play just like Jordan Addison. I feel like for that reason, he was my favorite pick of this draft. I just feel like he can potentially be that Addison, or even if they throw him in there, if they're going to run three receivers out there, like if you're going to put him in the slot, I don't know what you're going to do. You could do different things with him. I think obviously the draft diamond and the impact is going to be Donovan Jackson. I agree with you, Kobe King, with that best value pick. I don't know where I had him. I don't know where he went, but I had him as the eight linebacker. I didn't rank that many linebackers, but for him to go in the six as the eight linebacker, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then we talked about Felton. Big thing here, big picture with the Vikings. You took the risk letting Sam Darnold kind of walk. You're throwing the reins at JJ McCarthy after that injury to take over with KOC. How do we think this is going to go? How do we think it's going to work? Is this a good marriage? Is this a good pair? Is this a good team?
Yes, 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 and yes. Was it a good draft? No. Is JJ McCarthy going to have a lot of success with the Minnesota Vikings? I do think so. Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer. Every quarterback that goes in his offense, well, most of them is good. Like Josh Dobbs had a like generational run
Yeah,
with, like he just made it work. Kirk Cousins, we saw what happened when he left the offense. I'm hoping the same thing doesn't happen to Sam Darnold, but for he resurrected Sam Darnold's career.
he
Like
100% did.
he has a really, really great track record. And not only that, I'm a huge believer, I know you are as well, is letting quarterbacks sit in a system. And JJ McCarthy, a guy who we were both higher on the consensus last year, he had a year to sit in the system behind Sam Darnold. So I think he's going to have a lot of success. I think this team is going to have a lot of success as long as he's under a rookie contract. Like you said, is next offseason is going to be very pivotal for them to see whether that window is closing or whether they open up a new one for themselves under the
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy reign.
100%. Once you have that quarterback in your system, that kind of dictates when your window opens and closes. We will have to see with this Vikings team. Um, and that will kind of pivot us to your Bears.
Mm.
Talk to me about your Bears.
Well, I will proudly say it was the best draft in our division. So
Yep,
uh,
by a
I
lot.
by a lot. There's some really, really fun stuff in this draft. I will admit that I wasn't as high on it when it first happened. And I think you and me were both on the same page. Like, I don't really know where this is going. I'm not
Yeah,
really high on this. And the more I think about it, in a Ben Johnson offense with him under the reins, like, there's a lot to like in this. That like getting Colston Loveland under in his scheme is going to be fantastic. Like Luther Burden being able to slot in with those receivers is going to be awesome. Like having to guard like having Caleb Williams and a Ben Johnson designed offense throwing the ball to DJ Moore, Romo Dunze, Luther Burden, and Colston Loveland is disgusting.
yeah,
So
that's
I'm with the solidified offensive line, like I am so excited for where this team is going to go. This offense is going to go. The defense was good last year. Like last year was not the defense's fault, and
nope.
now you fix the offense. And so I'm really excited. I also really like the Shamar Turner pick. We'll get into that in a second. But tell me what you think. I'm interested to see what a non-biased
Yeah.
opinion
I,
is.
I give it a B plus. I think the B plus mainly is the Loveland pick. I'm not as high in Loveland as you. I think it was interesting. Tight end was kind of that like kind of like wild card pick where they kind of needed it, kind of didn't. They could have went better, but they really also might not have been able to like. So I don't hate them taking the tight end. I just don't know if Loveland was the best one. But the more and more I think about it, I think he was for what this team is looking for. I feel like
I think.
obviously Warren was the guy in my opinion, but maybe not for this team. And I think the more and more as time goes on, that kind of grows on me a little bit.
Yep.
I like the Ozzy Trapillo pick. The offensive tackle who's going to be able to kind of hold the blocks. I don't know as much as you do maybe on this kind of off season. Yeah, but they didn't really address that tackle need. They went all in on that interior, but that tackle is going to be the tackle needs are going to be kind of coming throughout. So I don't hate that pick at all. I think he was on my one of my underrated teams, and I really like the Zot Frazier pick. I think he was my 19th, or no, he was the 19th cornerback taken. He was my number 10. So I feel like that's value in the fifth. I feel like Monungai, also, I think Newman, like I feel like they just full all around, they did a really fantastic job. Um, Talk to me about kind of what this direction of this team was this offseason as a fan, but also as Ben Johnson's coming in and
Yeah.
for the other Bears fans, what should they be excited for?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about like we said, I agree with what you said on the tight ends. Like I had Warren sixth on my board. Like I think Warren's the better player, but when you have Cole Kmet, you don't need another inline tight end. So Loveland's gonna slot in great next to him. Their mission, like you said, this offseason was to improve that offensive line, and they did. They got three brand new. The problems were not the tackle last year. Braxton Jones was fine. Darnell Wright was better. They're going to continue to improve. They're both young, and so they feel like they have some room to grow, and they didn't have room to grow on the interior, and they went and they got three brand new, proven veteran offensive linemen, and they did, and that was their goal, and they completed that as well as getting Grady Jarrett on the interior. I don't know how long he's going to be around, but if he's, I said that 4 years ago, and he's still
Yep.
around, so. We'll see what you get out of him. But yeah, I'm very, very, very excited about how the offseason went.
This is very comparable. I feel like this team, in a sense, obviously not as far along, but I'm looking at the depth, and it's very Eagles-esque in terms of the depth of this team and just how they added onto the depth in the draft. You got to be really excited if you're a Bears fan. I think I don't think they will finish first in the division, but if you're talking about all the teams that finished last year, I think they have the best opportunity to finish first out of every fourth place finisher last year.
Yeah.
I really like what this team is doing, and it'll kind of take us into the Caleb Williams and the new head coach. Do you think this is a good pairing? Can Caleb step it up for his sophomore year and avoid that sophomore slump?
I absolutely do. I think he needed to. I think your goal was to save his career this offseason, and you
Yeah.
did. You got a great head coach in there, the best young offensive mind and one of the best offensive minds in the league right now, as well as not only getting him two new weapons, but you got a upgraded offensive. Like if he fails this year, it's his fault. There
Yep.
He could not have a better, they could not have done a better job surrounding him with talent. They couldn't have.
And we talked about it coming into last year. Um, was this one of the kind of when he was drafted, is he coming into one of the best situations like he's been around for a rookie quarterback? And this is an even better one. And I think they know exactly how to build the trenches. I'm interested to see what they do with the running backs. Um, I was kind of I was expecting maybe a Nick Chubb signing to pair with Swift, and then obviously you draft the guy. But it speaks to how much they like Rashawn Johnson. But comment on guys obviously gonna be a player.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean this is just it's a great job by them. We'll go really quickly through these. Peyton, talk to me about this.
Yeah, Colston Loveland is going to be both year one and favorite pick. I think he's going to be awesome. Like we talked about, like he's going to be great with Cole Kmet. He's going to be great in every aspect you asked him to do. Keep an eye on Ruben Hypolite out of Maryland. I've heard a lot of good things about him. He is just a complete athletic freak, like one of the best athletes in the whole draft. And they didn't draft him to come play immediately because they don't need him to come play immediately because that room is good. But
Yeah,
it's not going to be in a couple of years because we got some aging guys in there, and I think he's going to be awesome down the road. Value Manungai open running back room. He's a guy that I had ranked a lot higher. That's why he's the best value. I think he's gonna be really good. And Shamar Turner, a guy that is kind of a flex defensive tackle, flex edge guy, which is what the Bears really like to do on their defensive line, get really strong, really big defensive ends, and he's gonna fit that perfectly. So I'm very excited to see how he fits into this defensive line.
for sure. And I feel like Shamar Turner, also my sleeper. You had Scorton, we were so high on him, and then of course, the other Shamar Stewart, when he was playing in college. So you got to fight with those guys. I mean, he is a really good spot. I feel like he's got a lot of untapped potential that they will tap into. My favorite pick is Burden. I feel like just Burden, what he can bring to this offense. And Odunze is kind of like that secure safety blanket, and then DJ Moore is just going to go wild. But Burden can just run around and do crazy things. We talked about Za Frazier, and then I do think Colson Loveland is going to be a fine pass catcher for this team.
Yeah.
Um, and that'll take us right into the offseason winners and losers. Pete, on give it to me.
Well, I think the Bears were the clear offseason winner,
Easy, easy,
not only because they had a great offseason, arguably one of the best in the whole league, if you combine free agency as long as the draft. Everybody else stank in the offseason. So
terrible.
I would give I don't want to I'd probably go the Lions for the offseason loser
Okay,
because if you factor in losing both of the coordinators, the Packers had the
yeah,
worst offseason from a player personnel side.
100%.
Um, yeah, tell me what you think about that.
I would say the same thing. Bears would be my winner, and I think Packers would be my loser. Obviously, you lose a lot if you're the Lions, but I feel like they are going to recoup that. 10.5 wins, that's a large margin. Are we going over or under for the Lions?
I'm gonna go over. I would be
Yep.
really shocked if they end up worse than 11-5 this season. 11-6. Like I think they're gonna be just fine.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think they'll go over. I think the Lions will go over. I think Packers will go under. And I think the Vikings and the Bears will go over.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
that's exactly what I'd have.
it's a great division. This will be a really good race. You get the draft guy, Division Draftables. Gotta love it. NFC North Edition, episode 2. Thank you so much for tuning in.